Hi, pretty little lifters. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to Jessica Rosa. Jessica is a New York credentialed PE and health educator, the founder of NuEra Women, a college adjunct lecturer in the health promotion and nutrition science department at CUNY Lehman College. She established a new course in health education. It's a high school women's health class at her school, which you know I'm a fan of as a fellow health teacher. And she has strived to advocate for women's health in school. Jessica has presented at conferences and continues to showcase presentations for the education system. I was introduced to Jessica by her colleague, Kristine Ferreira, who was also a PLL guest on episode 1 of this 6th season. And I'm so excited to talk to her because I know we have a similar mission when it comes to teaching women's health. Now let's welcome Jessica to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Jessica.
Thank you. So excited. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you joining us here from New York. Yes?
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So if you could give us a brief intro of who you are and what you are currently up to personally and professionally.
Perfect. So I'm Jessica Rosa. I'm a mom of 2, amazing wife as well. Yes, I do. I am an adjunct for Lehman College. It's a CUNY college here in New York City. I am a phys ed and health teacher, and I teach women's health, all up in that role right there. And I am a doctorate student at Teachers College, Columbia University, and I'm studying specifically women's health and specifically PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome.
That's amazing. And I think that's what I was so excited to connect with you about, because we were connected through your colleague, Kristine, who her and I follow each other on Instagram. And she was also a guest on this podcast this season. And she was just like, oh my gosh, you teach girls, you teach women's health. Like you have to meet Jessica. Like she's getting her doctorate.
Oh.
And I was just so excited because you're younger. I think I saw a post. You're like, I'm going to be 30, right?
Yes.
I was like, it's her birthday month. And this episode will probably be aired later, like past your birthday, but we'll wish you a happy early birthday. And by the time it rolls out, you will be in your 30s. And I'm super excited for you because I feel like my 30s were like, and I feel like a lot of women say this, like very transformational. And I feel like you are doing so much professionally that when you are in your 30s, you're going to be doing so much good in your industry. And like you already are. And I can't even imagine once you're in your 30s. I was like, woo, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this.
Yes. I love that you use that word. You said transformative. Like, they change the world. And that's how I want my young ladies to look at age. Like, it is beautiful. Every age is beautiful. And you're going to celebrate because we're living and we're breathing and we're having a beautiful time every single moment of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would love to know, how did you get into teaching and like PE and health? Was this something you always knew you wanted to do, like in this field? What was your path?
Absolutely. So I did not want to be a teacher. Not one bit. No, for real. Not one bit. So I wanted to actually study architecture and interior design.
Oh, that is different. That's so different.
Yes, so different. Like, it's different. I'm over here like in front of people like, woohoo! And I was supposed to be, making things. So I was supposed to study that direction. And unfortunately, the school was going to be in Georgia. Last minute, my mother, even after swim scholarship, even after financial aid and anything that I could have gotten at that time, because of that, I was not able to go. So financially, it was a trimester school. It was too much. New York, Georgia, it just wasn't happening. So then last minute, we were scrambling because I wanted to swim. I'm a swimmer. We were scrambling to stay in New York to find a school that can obviously service me, not only for academics, but also specifically, and not architecture, by the way, specifically more of swimming. So when I stood here and stood in New York, which was a blessing now, I wanted to before,
you're like, get me out of here.
Young teen, I was like, but I decided to stay. And when I stood, then that led to opportunities to become a swim instructor, which is kind of like teaching. So at
Yes.
18, I became a swim instructor, right? I'm over here like telling babies at 4 weeks old, telling babies with a parent, right? But I'm like, hey, flip on your belly. And then I also taught a one-to-one private lesson for a woman. I believe she was in her 70s. She only came for like 3 times. I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't she come after? But I never heard back. But it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I felt so connected. And the way I was describing things and like saying, oh my goodness, like I think I'm good at this. But again, I didn't choose teaching. And then later on, I went into my third college because I started to transfer over 3 colleges. Luckily finished in 4 years through persistence and motivation. And at my third college, I was like, you know what? I actually find exercise science pretty interesting. Now, the only part with that is anatomy and physiology, I did horrible. Chemistry, I did horrible. So I was like, I don't think exercise science is going to work for me. So later on, I switched over to recreation education. And with that, being a swim instructor, also having another position of a leadership role in the swim world, I also decided to take on an internship, a physical education internship and coaching, specifically swim coaching at a private school. And that's when the flow started to come. Like, okay, I guess, maybe this is what I want to do. Mostly because one, as a swimmer, as athletes, as people who love to be moving all the time, we always probably need to be moving. And if we sit down like a corporate world, we're going to get bored.
Mm-hmm.
So on that journey, I think that's really what kind of led to me being a teacher today. And then we'll see the future. But yeah, it was quite interesting. Quite interesting.
I love asking that question to PE teachers because I myself have a non-traditional route too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's fun because I think there are a lot of people out there who could be amazing PE and health teachers, but they think, oh, I'm not the sporty person, or I didn't do sports through high school and college. And I'm like, no,
Yep.
you don't have to. It's just, I feel like the best ones are the most passionate and the ones that are just like most excited
Yes.
about it, that kind of stumble upon it and find it possibly even later, because I like
Yep.
you, I didn't have that anatomy physiology background. Like that was stuff I had
Yeah.
to learn and continue to learn on my
Yeah.
own because it's like that wasn't my lane, you know.
Right.
But
Right.
I love
Takes
hearing that.
time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I work at an all-girls school. So since I
Mm.
started teaching health here, it was really easy for me to focus on women's health and incorporate things that
Yeah.
I wish I learned in high school or as an
Yep.
adult even. You are at
Yep.
a co-ed public high school.
Yep.
You got to share with us, how did your health class for, your women's health class for your students,
Yep.
this elective, how did it come to be? Was there any pushback? What was the students' response? And like, why is it so important to teach
Yeah.
women's health in schools, especially co-ed schools?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So shout out to my women's health girls. So it is a high school course and my girls get credit. Now I say girls because for the past 3 years, there only has been my young ladies, but it is open to everybody. Got
Love
to be
that.
extremely honest there.
Love
Yeah.
that.
So, interesting. So after my phys ed degree, I went back straight to get my health degree. And in my health degree, which the college that I'm teaching now at, I was taking on health and I taught, well, specifically, let me back it up. I was in a class of women in health led by Dr. Fusco, an amazing, amazing person who later gave me that position to teach that course today. So I'm
Oh,
really
love
excited
that. Full
about that.
circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Yes.
And in that class, I was like, what is going on? Talking about menstrual cycle and pregnancy and childbirth. And at that time, I was pregnant with my first two. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, this is really amazing. And guess what? I'm a private school, Catholic school girl. So we didn't get any of that. I was like,
Same.
why am I learning this at 22, 23, 24, right? So I was like, oh my goodness, what can I do to pass on this information to others? And then going through pregnancy and then giving birth and all of this stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like what's going on here? So I started to gather information from the book. I felt so attached to it. In a small little secret, I actually always felt attached to babies with the world of medical a long time ago. But because I
Same.
was not good at science, I let it go. I was like, I cannot be a medical person. Like, that doesn't exist in my family. Like, what? So I had no background to even ask. So that's why architecture, I was like, oh, architecture. But being in that class and then being a mom and learning so much more at a later age, finally, when I got to the school that I'm at today, I saw a beautiful co-ed world. Very different of how I grew up, very different of the other schools I was at even before that school. And I was in one of my health classes after COVID when we finally got back into the classroom. And this young gentleman, he said, Miss, the girls in this school need a class just for them. And little did he know, I was literally just finishing that course, the Women in Health course, and that I was already like thinking of something and wanting something so specific to give back to our young ladies for their future. And I always mention him because he's such a beautiful point in my journey. And I hope he's doing well today. So I decided to write up a curriculum and present it to my boss first, and she approved. And then it went to my principal. He approved. So luckily, no pushback. Just, this looks awesome. Let's roll it out. It started off with 9 students, one section. Then the second year was two classes, 44 students. And then today we have 3 sections. Started off at a high number, but because of different movements of schedules and different things that needed to happen, now we have, I think, 60 students today.
That's amazing. Yes. Oh my gosh. And yes. So is this is considered like an elective, or is it part of the science curriculum?
Love that. So specifically in my school at New York State, we have a whole separate health education credit. So it's a whole credit that students need, yes, to get their whole diploma, like to get graduated. So it's a 0.5, half a credit. So they either get it in 10th grade in some schools, or they get it specifically in our school, 11th or 12th grade, which is a long time.
Oh, okay. Later. So, so then you guys have, so would that compare to in California, they have to take 1 semester of health class in 9th grade? Okay. So that's kind of the same.
Exactly.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Yes. And exactly. And honestly, in all different schools, they get to figure out where they want their credit, what grade they want their credit. As long as the students get the half a credit for graduation, they're good to go. For our school, we're a little lucky because we get to extend it, still the 0.5, but we extend it every other day from September to June. So we see our students every other day, and it's still a 0.5. From some other schools that I know of, other teachers in specifically the county that we teach in, which is Westchester County, they have it for a semester, like you just said. So it's a little bit quicker.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing, because I will say, as someone who teaches the semester, like I'm like, how am I supposed to teach you everything you need to know about health in like 18 to 20 weeks? Like, I am stressed.
Yes, it's so bombarded. And then you're like, you want to do more activities, right? Yes. And it's like, you want to connect.
It's really hard. It really is a give and take of like you said, lecturing and making sure they're getting this information, having time for projects and collaboration, having time for like community. It's like that 90 minutes, because we see them for 90 minutes. It goes so fast, like so fast. Yes. And then before I know it, it's like the last couple of weeks that I'm like, okay, we're going to do 5 lessons a day, because here we go. You need to know this.
Yes. Absolutely. And then you're like, oh my goodness, we just skipped out on this. I forget it. You got to go to the, another class. I'm done with you. I don't see you anymore. Yeah. And then you find out, they be coming back to you. They're like, girl, I miss you. I'm like, oh, miss you too. Oh my God. Time. But to have like that full year, you connect more. You get to drag out the lessons a little bit more. Just kind of have it flow in a beautiful way. Not that the 1 semester is bad. It's just, it's a little bit more extensive and connected.
I mean, I honestly, like, I had another friend and guest on here who she teaches in, she had just gotten to China, but she was teaching somewhere else. Maybe it was Morocco. Like, I don't remember, but she does international teaching, and she's a health teacher. And she was saying at the school that she was in China now, they have health throughout their curriculum their whole entire time in school. And I was like, as it should be. I was like, as it should be, because clearly
100%.
Us adults, like, we don't know enough. Like, the adults, the general population, like, we do not know enough. And so I just think like, well, yeah, because you had a semester, you know, like what did you expect
Yes.
to walk away with? This was like scratching the
Yes.
surface, you know? And
I totally agree.
yeah, so what has your student response been like? Like what kind of changes have you noticed in the girls? What kind of questions are they asking?
Yep.
Like what is it like?
Yep. Oh my goodness. So I actually want to know from you too, but it is so interesting. I can be so like, oh, like my day in the morning could be like so bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids, I woke up late, I snooze, oh my gosh. And then I'm at my job, I'm like, oh. And then when I get to my classroom, I'm like, I am ready because my girls deserve everything of who I am and to snap out of it like, girl, come on, like, even though you're a mom, get over it. Like, this is time for your students now. But to be in that space and to have them ask a random question like, Miss, how do you put a tampon in? Like, I gotta know. Like, tell me, because I
Yeah.
asked my mom and it doesn't work that way, or I can't ask anybody, or I'm raised by my dad and I don't have a mom. So there's so many, and I could like, we could have a whole another hour. There's so many little things that allow this space. So a question you asked was like, why women's health, right? Why in high school? And specifically, it's just a space for our young ladies to learn more about their body, to love who they are, to build that confidence first, right? And then it could lead to long-term benefits of sharing that information with other girls and other families. And one day, if they decide to be a mom, they get to have that journey with their daughter or son, right? Because there's two ways. But to be in a space to have my young students just ask any question, literally any question, that's what literally it tells us how open we are, how safe we are, how welcoming we are. In the beginning of the year, this school year, by the grace of God, I was recognized by the administration. And I was like, wait, what? How did that happen? We get a lighthouse and we pass it every month to new faculty members. And it turned out that the students were actually talking so much about me as a teacher as well as the class. So they're like, okay, we have to recognize Jessica,
Oh,
Miss Rosa. And I was so stumbled. I was like, what? I was so stumbled, and I'm so grateful because that's what's telling me I'm doing my job for my students, and I know
yeah.
that it's going to carry. But to even extend that conversation, to have a space that allows us to cry, allows us to laugh, allows a student that to turn around and for students to say, you know what, I don't like the color of my skin, and then the student in the front said, I could relate to you, and they never spoke halfway
Hmm.
during the year, now they speak. To have that connection, or even talking about hair and understanding your hair, because I had to cut my hair, boy short, a little bit short, when I was in high school to finally learn and love who I was, because my hair was always permed and relaxed,
Hmm.
which is another conversation. So now I
Yeah.
have my curly hair, and I found out that that was the start of loving me, and
Oh,
getting through that journey and then giving that back now to our young ladies in my classroom. But it is a space that I could cry about and talk about, and I want to share that even beyond the classroom, which is why I designed and created NuEra Women, my company, to continue to give back in that light of tearful feelings and joy and so much more. And oh my gosh, I'm just thinking of all
I
my
love
amazing
that. I
students.
love that. And
Yeah.
I think as educators sometimes like when we're super, passionate about something, you want to just like extend it in other ways. I feel like that's my Pretty Little Lifters. Like that's everything I
Mhm.
do with this is like
Yes.
this is my extension because we get to teach our bubble of kids, and each year we get a new group. But I'm like, and
Mhm.
this as a health teacher, one of our standards, and I'm sure they're slightly different in New York, but in general,
Yes.
is health promotion. So getting our students to
Yep.
teach their knowledge to whatever their health knowledge is that they're learning and share it in the community and like disseminate this
Yeah.
information. And I feel like that's what you and I are doing, and it's like I'm trying to do
Yes.
that through Pretty Little Lifters and connect with other women, other teens, other teachers to show
Yeah.
like, hey, this is what we're doing. And you're doing that with NuEra. So I would love
Yeah.
to hear a little bit more about NuEra. Why did you create it? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, we kind of hear some of the inspiration, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. Yes. So this started about a year ago. So we're about to make a year this February. So February is a great month.
Yes, February anniversary.
Yes. Yes. I'm so, 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 so grateful. So last year, I decided to kind of be this person to be a presenter. So I was like, all right,
I
let's
love that.
present at a conference. So my first conference, it was 8:15 in the morning. I got to be honest, the room was filled. I don't know if it was because 8:15, where all the teachers need to get get that first, hour in and be like, they're done. Or the fact that they really wanted to be there because they never really saw the title Women's Health. This does not exist in New York State, at least from my knowledge in a school. So it was a filled room and it was so beautiful. The conversations were beautiful with amazing health educators and phys ed educators all over Westchester County and specifically New York State. And from there, I kind of got this, feeling like, oh my gosh, okay, one, I like to present. And two, this is kind of really cool. So then I decided to present again 2 weeks later at a state conference upstate New York. And that wasn't as large of as a number from my first one, but it was still an opportunity to advocate for why women's health is so important in schools. So after that, I was like, you know what? Let me text somebody. So I texted somebody. I was like, I think I got to do something. And she was already in the business journey. So she kind of put me on like, hey, here's a list. Here's what you need to write down, why you're doing this. You're not just going to do it just because. And I decided to put together my why. So for NuEra Women, we educate and empower our youth and our adults through women's health education and health education. We provide workshops. We provide packages for schools and organizations, one-to-one services, and I'll say a little secret right now on your podcast. We are now going to transition into creating a membership for our amazing members. So
I
I'm
love
excited. Our
that.
sunflower members.
Congrats. I love
Yes.
that. That's so
In the works.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's so great because here's the thing, like you are a health educator, you are also teaching, teen girls, but like we
Mm-hmm.
have a whole population of women that missed out on this education. Like I feel like my health education kind of just scratched the surface too. There was a lot of things that I, as a 40-something-year-old woman, like was still learning. And I was like, why did I not know this for the last 20 years? Like, what?
There's also so much of a beauty of that too.
Yeah.
The moment to say, hey, I finally learned about this, but let me tell you at 16. Let me tell you what I've learned, so that we can continue to change the game. Right?
100%.
To change the game.
Yeah.
So.
Like I've done a whole 2 podcast episodes on this in season 5, but I'm currently experiencing like perimenopause. And I was like, you better believe my students are going to learn this because this was a big surprise for me, especially because I started earlier than most people. And I was like, I learned a lot. So I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen to you.
Yes. And you mentioned something so important, right? So not only is perimenopause moving closer within the age of, that lower age, but also the period, right? So age 8, can you imagine like, oh girl, go put that pad. What if it's heavy at age 8? Like what? And athletes, as an athlete for myself, as a swimmer, I had to use a tampon at a young age. Like there's no way I was going to a pool with a tampon. Like this story is there too. No, thank you. So, it's, then we could tie this conversation into nutrition, right? Physical activity. Like, why are our young girls getting it at an earlier age, and hormones? Like, So, all right, now we're in a soapbox. So, yeah.
You know, it's so interesting that you mentioned that about like even like periods, like starting sooner. I remember like I got my period when I was in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. I 13. I have a late birthday. My birthday was in August. So yeah, I was in 8th grade and I remember being like, I'm the last one. Oh my gosh, this is so late. Like how sad everyone got their period but me. And I was just like jealous that I didn't have my period yet. But in retrospect, I was like, well, that was a blessing. Like that didn't happen later. But like then I, became a teacher and I taught elementary school for 10 years first. And that's when I started to notice like sooner and sooner periods were happening. I was like, wait a minute, we are in 3rd grade. Interesting. So it was just like, for me, that was information, that was education. And like, I had to rework, like, do I have things available for these students? Like making sure, is the parent talking to them about this? Like, so there's a lot of things that even non-health teachers like need to be aware of, and being able to support their students and knowing what to say and getting that education. But I love that you have been doing more conferences, you've been doing more speaking things. And I think that's so important, especially like I can tell, like you're so energetic and passionate about this
Yeah.
topic. And that's what makes the best speakers. Like when you're just like so like in love with what you're
Yeah.
talking about and you could talk
Yeah.
about it for hours. It's like, I think that's so great. And I love that you are bold and brave enough to do that. Like, I think it's really important for teachers to take up space and their expertise and like their interest. And
Yeah.
yeah. And
I love that.
what made
Yeah.
you choose? Because you mentioned that you are getting your doctorate, which is amazing, and I know will open
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of doors and new knowledge.
Yeah.
What had you? So did they have you specifically focus on? Like, did you have to narrow what you're studying? Because you mentioned PCOS, or like, how did that come about?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, good question. Oh my gosh, great question. So basically, I am in the Doctor of Education, so EDD, not a PhD. Everyone's like, oh, PhD. I'm like, no, no philosophy over here. So my EDD specifically, it's so broad. So it is the specifically the Health Education and Promotion degree and well department. And in this specific department, I have like everybody in the circle. Like there's dental individuals, there's nurses, there's people in healthcare. Like
Oh,
it is
cool.
so broad. So we get to specifically pick whatever we would like to study. Is just the fact that we are specifically studying in the world of education and giving
Mm,
back to that world. So because I finally found the journey of what I wanted to do and go back to that original medical thought, which it wasn't medical, it was
yes.
more education, found it, right? So I had doing surgeries, even though I watch surgeries. But the fact that I do, so the fact that that journey came about, women's health, the class that I teach now, the connections and the way I feel talking about it, and you mentioned it, I could talk about it forever. That led for me to specifically study women's health, to continue to give back to our women and our young women and our teens. And PCOS is very personal. So personally, I do not have PCOS, but I have so many family and friends and my best friend and so many individuals that have PCOS. And as I am listening to their stories and their struggles, especially with confidence, and there's weight part of that, there is hair part of that, hormones and fertility. And I decided I need to dig a little, I need to dig more with this topic
Yeah.
so that I could continue to help my family and friends. And that's also a section part of the membership coming out soon for PCOS community so that they could continue to learn with me, and they can also have access to experts to learn more about their bodies because not everybody, especially Latinos, Latinas, not everybody, understands you have to go see the doctor and the
Mm-hmm.
doctor speak up. So many times we are so quiet and our symptoms overpower our negativity and then we don't find a way out. So I said,
Yeah.
let's create a space for the community of PCOS and many other individuals to continue to educate and empower and to build that confidence that everything will be okay, but you need to speak up and you need to find your community.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. I think that's so great. And I think like that's even one of the topics where like all of a sudden I would be on TikTok and I'd see people talking
Mm-hmm.
about it. I'm like, what? This was like, before I became a health teacher. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like
What is
what?
that?
Like I'm looking this up. Like even myself,
Yes.
like I haven't been officially diagnosed because you like really can't, you go off symptoms,
Yes.
but my
Yep.
gynecologist was like, hey, like maybe you might be dealing with endometriosis. I had to
Mm-hmm.
look that up. I'm like,
That's
what
another
is
word.
this? Like, I was just like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was like, what is this? And it's just like, I feel like that's where a lot of us, millennial age people like are, we're like Googling things
Yes.
because we're like, we didn't
Yes.
learn this. So I
Yes.
definitely make it a point in my classes. And that is the beauty of being able to have
Yes.
girls in these health classes that are geared towards them because there are
Yep.
just so many health things that affect women. And we
Yes.
know that the research is way behind and we need to
Yes.
step it up.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're learning about that, right? In your classes.
Yes. Yes. I love that you mentioned that. Like literally, like so around October, we actually discuss endometriosis, fibroids, uterine fibroids, and PCOS. That's literally in that whole unit. And I extend PCOS a little bit more because it can affect their age. specifically different symptoms that can occur at a teenage age, but they need to have their period 2 years before. Nerd me saying that. And uterine fibroids is very common. Endometriosis is very common. And I always say to my young ladies, even though we will discuss abstinence and safe sex practices, but I tell them they're 16, 17, 18. I say, hey, if there's any discomfort or pain during sex, that is a big sign of different things like endometriosis.
Yeah.
And there's other characteristics as well as symptoms part of that. And I love to be in a space to educate them. I always say to them, listen, if you have a certain question that I cannot answer, and of course I'm on the educational part of it, I will always tell them, see your medical provider, talk to a medical provider. Some of them are so interested in saying like, what is an OBGYN or a GYN? And then their questions then extend, can it be a male? Can it be a female? And I always say, whatever you feel comfortable with, you will definitely get into that world and you will find out, oh, this person makes me feel comfortable, this person does not. And that's the same thing, even though we can't switch around teachers, but there's sometimes you don't like this teacher, but you still have to go to class, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably a horrible example, but anyway, so the fact that just kind of understanding that these topics are important. Tying along with that, I talk about breast cancer, gynecologic cancers, like we talked about uterine cancer, cervical cancer, then we get into pap smears. Like it's a beautiful world. Yeah. And I'm so happy that you're an advocate of what I'm doing. So thank you.
Yes,
and what
I'm
you're doing
so
too.
excited. And like I said, I have the privilege of doing this because I already teach at an all-girl environment, which is like, I love that. And I went to an all-girl school, so this is like right up my alley.
Yeah,
but
same.
I love knowing that you are in a co-ed school and this is accessible to your students. And I really hope that you launching this curriculum and course can inspire other health teachers, to do this or to include in their school curriculum, because I think it is just so important, especially like we have a new administration. We're seeing things happen in the health space. We're seeing things disappear from the CDC. And these are websites we tell our kids to go to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're going to be an important resource for them. So
yes, like hello, me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I love that. So I have one final question that I ask all my guests, and it's what advice would you share with your teenage self and teens today?
So with myself, I would tell myself, dear little Jessica, grow some confidence. I promise you can do it. I promise you will succeed. Love your skin, love your hair, love who you are. If you're the person that loves to dance and then also loves to be quiet, love both parts of you. And when you are to the extreme and you want to be super extrovert, be you and love you and knock out the noise. And then when you're in the zone of wanting to stick to yourself and being a little corner, focus on how is that helping you, right? The coping strategy of it, get a coloring book, figure it out. But that's to myself, right? Of what I wish I would know. And for my amazing teens, the same direction. Love who you are, build that confidence, love internal and external part of you. Never let anyone bring you down because I say, pa fuera, bye. Like we don't need that, you don't need those people in your circle, right? You don't need those people. Small circles are beautiful. But to love who you are, build who you are, and self-improve every single day and give yourself grace because you're beautiful inside and out. And someone will see that. Someone will see that.
I love that.
That's what I would like to say.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, young Tiffany needed confidence too. I think about that often. I was like, if young, like Tiffany could see this Tiffany today, she'd be like, oh my gosh, we're confident. We're doing things. Like she'd be so like, who is this person? And that makes me happy. And I love that. Like, that's what you would also say to your teenage self. It's so cute. I love it. Yeah. So how can we support you? Where can we direct people?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. I would love everyone to continue to support NuEra Women. So NuEra Women, or Women's Health, specifically on NuEra Women Instagram. That would be amazing.
Perfect. And I am so grateful for you for taking the time. I know you're busy. You're a teacher too. It's your weekend, and I appreciate you making time to have this conversation. And I definitely feel like we need to do some collaborations in the future with
Yes,
our
let
women's
me
health
know.
knowledge. And I'm really
Yes.
excited about that. And thank you for everything that you do and your honesty and everything that you are providing for your students and your energy. Like I could see why your students like your class. Like you come in there with your handouts and you're like, you
Yes, and I'm always dancing. I'm always dancing. I'm doing the Cotton Eye
yes.
Joe. I'm doing everything. Like they know, and they know they're gonna laugh. That's the number one thing. They will smile and laugh before they leave my classroom.
I love
So,
that. That is amazing. Well, thanks to
thank
everyone for
you.
listening to the Pretty Little Lifters podcast. And I'm so grateful again to our guest, Jessica, for joining us on this episode. Yes, I will be sharing all of her information in the show notes and you will love her. Go learn, go listen. And I will talk to you
Thank
next
you.
episode. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiff.